Welcome everyone to this session of Elevate Your Wellbeing Contagious Care. And today's topic is 5 key tips that I have learnt through feeling wobbly. And isn't it interesting that when you've planned to give a talk on this topic, that you become very wobbly yourself. I'm speaking for myself here, and there's a lot of stresses that are going on in our community right now, and inside me in what that's all about, and the closeness I have with people who are just really suffering through tragedy right now. So this topic is raw, and this topic is very relevant to all of us in different ways and on different levels. And so please just come in, and I want to welcome you to a topic that is so important, and as all these topics have been, and what a wonderful thing it's been to have our last 2 guest speakers, Grant and then Kat, speaking on how we can develop resilience and how we can really find ways of having mental well-being through different crises in our lives. So welcome Deborah, and welcome Amanda, and hi Alison, my dear sister from the States. Lovely to have you here. And just I wonder if you can just put in the chat box now, what are your thoughts about having a strong mind? What are the first words that come to your mind when I say, let's develop a strong mind? Just jot in the comments box. What are the phrases or the words that just come to you straight away in developing a strong mind? I'm going to share with you 5 of them. And I think I'm going to make it 6 just because I can. I could make it 26, but we've only got supposedly a half hour. So what we're going to look at, how we can develop mental, emotional, relational and physical well-being, but it all starts with our mind. So do you agree that some people are physically fit and some people are extremely physically unfit? Just put in the chat box yes or no if you agree with me that there's people on this earth with such extremes. Yes, do you agree that people are so physically fit and there are others on the other end of the spectrum? Would you agree that some people consciously feed their brain with healthy words, healthy mind chatter and constructive thoughts, and other people feed their mind on a daily basis with absolute garbage? Would you agree with that? Let me know. Now, I'm just seeing you and I'm not hearing anything, so please put in the chat box to let me know whether I'm actually on right now. So just make a comment. Do you agree with what I've said so far? Which do you value more, physical well-being or mental well-being? What do you prioritize the most in your daily life? What do you prioritize the most? So in realizing that the way we feed our body, mind and soul and our relationships, it can either bring enormous amounts of stress, or we can choose to nourish ourselves and experience elevated well-being. Alison is saying, I try to think about a growth mindset over a fixed mindset. That's right. And Rhonda, yes, thank you. Thanks for coming in, Rhonda. So yes, it's so important. How are we going to grow from this experience? What are some ways where we can see our future growth out of a very sad event, okay? Let me know if this is resonating for you. See, this morning I'm going to share with you something, not the raw things that are happening for me right at the moment, because it's grief with what's going, with what's happened to a dear friend of mine and what's happening elsewhere. That's raw. But in a similar way, what happened to me 10 years ago, almost 11 years ago now, was developing breast cancer. And that taught me a number of things that are very similar to the lessons I'm applying now in my life with these raw crises that are occurring. And so it's really important to have a space that we can go to and some really constructive tips that we can have as our general well-being when crises do occur. Because my diagnosis later down the track made me reflect on a few really significant questions. How well equipped am I at retaining my well-being through a crisis? Can I prevent at least some of the stresses that I experience? And do I have wellness daily habits as a pattern in my life? And that's what I'm here to give you a few of them today. That's why I wrote the Elevate Your Wellbeing book series that I've co-authored with some brilliant co-authors, I should say. I was just very privileged to be one of them, but some brilliant co-authors that have joined me in this book. I know it's back to front for you, but that have actually given some tremendous tips from their areas of expertise on well-being, and that helps you last the distance through a crisis. But more importantly, it prepares you for a crisis that we're all going to have at some stage in our lives. Rhonda's saying, struggling with maintaining healthy emotional standing to keep real choice. Thank you, Rhonda. Yeah, so to maintain healthy emotional standing. And that draws back to what we feed our brain with. So what do you think the opposite of well-being is? Just think about that for the moment. Put in the comments box, what is the opposite of well-being in your mind? There's a number of different answers. But what is the opposite of well-being for you? I'll give you a clue. Who knows the cause of disease in this planet? I've just given you the answer. Dis-ease is the opposite of well-being. So, the cause of dis-ease, the major cause of dis-ease on this planet is, put it in the chat box if you know. So certainly many of you could relate to a cancer journey or a diagnosis. It's one of the greatest stresses that you could imagine that life could bring. Rhonda's saying one of the greatest causes of disease on this planet is being defeated and feeling defeated. Too right, Rhonda. And stress is researched as being the #1 leading cause of disease on this planet. And feeling defeated is an outcome of that stress if we don't get on top of it and manage our stress. As Amanda has said, stress is such a huge thing that just, it's like having, if you don't know how to deal with it and you haven't got good stress management skills in place, you can just crumble, and not just your feet are wobbly, but you can crumble. So I'm just going to share you a bit of my story. And 11 years ago, almost 11 years ago now, when I was carrying out my monthly routine which was a wise routine of checking my breasts in the shower each month, I found a lump in the shower. No, wish it was in the shower. It was on my breast, and it was very clearly a lump. And the diagnosis came 6 days later, and It was the day after I attended my cousin's funeral who had died of cancer. So it was a really challenging time, as you imagine. And the life lesson for me was the importance of regular checking. Yes, I've got my pink ribbon earrings on today, and I'm wearing pink to celebrate life after having gone through a severe cancer journey, having an aggressive form of cancer, and I'm just so privileged to be alive today, enjoying every moment that I can. I don't take 1 second for granted. But you know, the life lesson for me here was you can never be too vigilant. Keep a check of any bodily changes that are occurring in you, whatever parts of your body. And also, in the same way, we need to be vigilant in taking a check on our mind. What are the changes that are going on in our mind that aren't good things? Be aware of keeping track of those changes, because as Marie is saying, it's so difficult when the difficulties layer up on top of each other, and that's when our mind can really play havoc with us. Our relationship with our mind is the most crucial thing on earth. God's given us a brain. Thank you, Alison. I've just read your message. We're so glad you're alive too, Heather. Thank you. And, you know, it's just such a privilege to be here almost 11 years down the track. And so keeping a check on your mind. You see, when I first heard breast cancer, that C word, the shock for me was somewhat softened. You see, I was up at the Sydney Breast Cancer Clinic and I was having a biopsy. When I was asked, waiting for my biopsy, I was asked if I wanted some sandwiches, and I realised none of the other women were offered sandwiches. They just came and had their tests and went. And I thought, oh, how kind is that? But then I realised there was a reason why I was being given free sandwiches. I didn't have good news that they were about to tell me. So there's no such thing as a free sandwich, girls. Keep your sense of humour. It's another thing I've learned. The next thing I learned was don't let a cancer diagnosis or a life-threatening illness or a relationship breakup or people, your loved ones who aren't speaking to you in this time for whatever reason, don't let crises beat you. You see, the day at that breast clinic, I had arrived too early, so I spent time going over to a Paddy Palin store opposite, and there was a sale, and I bought all these sale items. Well, I got them all off the rack and I tried them on because they were all like 60 to 70% off, and I couldn't resist. But then I looked at the time and there was a huge queue because it was a sale, and so I thought, oh, I've got to get to the breast clinic on time. So I just took the clothes up, all these active wear clothes, up to the counter and just said, can I come back and pay for these because I need to get somewhere else. So when I found out that I had a 3 center lump with a breast lump with the harshest form of chemotherapy and radiation to endure, I thought, I'm not going to let anything get in the way of a bargain. So after a good cry right there and then, I was on my own because I didn't think I was going to get that news. So John wasn't even with me. After a good cry, I thought, I'm not going to let those bargains, I'm not going to buy those items. I'm not going to let those bargains get the better, lose over a breast cancer diagnosis. I said to myself, I'm going to buy those items, whether I get to wear them or not. In one sense, buying the gear seemed totally meaningless. It was just totally out of proportion to the news I just found. But I got in that queue. There was still a queue there. The bargains were so good. It was a will for me to be triumphant. I am not going to let cancer win over a sale. And I hear the emphasis and triumphantness in my voice right now that I was refusing to let cancer win over whatever came next. See, the hardest part for me in this grief was obviously the thought that I might not survive to be alongside my children when they go through important milestones. Matthew was doing the HSC at the time, just about to, it was October. and to be there, you know, at their weddings and graduations and times when they needed me, and, you know, giving birth. Like, I just wanted to be there at those special times, and all those scenes flashed before me, but now with a haunting uncertainty. Cancer was indeed an uninvited guest in my life, and I knew there was something that I knew at that point, that it was totally up to me as to how I responded to it. So how do we respond to the challenges in our life? Are we going to let them take over? I imagine you've all had unwelcome guests in your life too. What are the unwelcome guests that you've had in your life that you've just wanted to zap out, like you don't belong here? I'm not talking about the long-lost relatives who you think are staying for a day, but they end up staying for a week. I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about the things we have to cope with, like disabilities or a terminal illness or unemployment now for young people especially, how devastating that is, or severe rejection or ongoing stuffed up relationships. I learnt right there and then, it's not so much what happens to us that matters in life. It's more about how we respond to what happens to us. We have a choice over what we respond to and how we respond to it. Hi, David. And Mindy is saying, both my sisters had breast cancer, one at 41 and the other at 60. Wow. They are still alive. Now I have to be checked all the time and had a scare last year. So I'm being watched. My dad died of brain cancer. My son had brain tumor in his brain stem. Lots of stress has been in my life. If it wasn't for God in my life, yeah, totally agree. Mindy, he gives a peace of mind. He says he will be with us. Those who keep our minds rested on him, we will receive his peace. For those of you who don't have a relationship with God, I hope that's not disrespectful to you, but in my faith, and as you're saying, Mindy, he has been your strength and your peace. And yeah, I couldn't speak more ditto in that area. So he has a purpose and a plan for us. And how did I respond to this uninvited guest? Often it's things we don't want, I realized, that nevertheless come our way, that end up being the most growth-producing or enriching experiences of our lives. Sometimes they're painful, and sometimes they're so painful we can't even face them in that moment. And that's what our community is going through now. And that's what my dear friend is going through now. Sometimes it's so devastating. We just can't pick ourselves up on that day. But if we can just get ourselves out of bed and take a step through all the confusion and uncertainty that I had in that moment, I was gently and lovingly reminded that God, my God, had a purpose and a plan for me. And in the bigger picture, no matter what happened, I knew I was in good hands, because I knew he was the one who gave me the courage to walk that unknown path. You know, I love what Adele Bashir says. Even the most challenging times cannot steal our hopes and our dreams. It cannot rob us of our faith or take away our capacity for love. We alone own the inner strength to rise in that moment. Who of you have experienced being able to rise in the moment, even through a challenging time? What was it that enabled you to do that? What did you feed your brain with that enabled you to face what you had to face? You see, I just want to speak to the people who are experiencing depression or anxiety or any of the really tough stuff that COVID has brought your way, or you may have had that experience, that backstory before COVID even came into being, and now everything might seem totally worse. I recognize that life is more difficult for people now than maybe ever before in history. But can we say, I recognize you, the depression or the anxiety, I recognize you, but you are not welcome here. So don't look at yourself and think that this is you forever. This too will pass. You will get through this. You will get over this. Try not to entertain the bad. Stop your own thought before that train of thought just becomes a shocking load of carriages that is going so fast you then can't stop it. Say, no, that's not who I am. Stop your own thought. Recognize those voices in your head and ask yourself, would you feed your friends crap? This is what I said to my friend the other day. Would you feed your friends crap? She said, no, of course I wouldn't. And I said, so why are you feeding yourself crap? You know, I love Gandhi's quote. He said, don't let anyone walk through your mind with their dirty feet. Are we letting people walk through our mind with dirty feet? Are we the tenants in our own mind, and we have not taken our own dirty shoes off before we have related to our mind, before we've started speaking to it? Sometimes it's us who allow the dirty voices to come in and sit in our minds, in our lounge room. You know, we have a beautiful golden retriever. Who of you has a dog? Just put in the chat box. Who of you has a dog or an animal? Do you wipe the dirty feet off your dog's paws before letting them come in to your house and sit in it? How much more valuable are your minds than your own house? You see, your brain is the dwelling place of your mind. Yet often, how often do we allow the dirty voices to enter in without you being the gatekeeper of your mind and saying, no, you can't come in, or yes, if it's constructive, yes, you can. So Alison's saying the disappointments, betrayals, diagnosis, while a struggle to endure, do not have to define us. That's right, Alison. None of these crises have to define us. Amanda's saying a chocolate lab, Lulu. Does that mean, Amanda, that you're feeding your body with good dark chocolate right now? Is that what I'm getting? Oh, no, you've got a chocolate lab. Sorry, my mind's on chocolate. Amanda, good on you. You've got a beautiful chocolate Labrador called Lulu. I just got it. Oh, my goodness. So occasionally dark chocolate is a good thing for the body, but on occasions, that's if I've got an addiction, it's water, which is a good one. Dark chocolate's the other that's not so good, just in moderation. Alison's saying we are the gatekeepers of our minds. Too right we are. So I want you to think about right now, what is your normal response to emotional pain? Understanding our COVID experience is different for each and every one of us. But what has been your normal general response to the COVID hardships? What's been your general go-to response? You see, our ability to make sense of the pain is really crucial here. Kathy, you love the Gandhi quote. Thank you. Just put in the comment sections, what has been your response? Do you want to have a response like Gandhi? What are some of the negative questions you've heard yourself or others ask when things go wrong for them? What's the negative questions we or others ask ourselves amidst our pain? Have you ever heard yourself asking, why me? Or I've wasted my life. Why is this happening to me? I've led a good life. It's not fair. What are some other things that you say to yourself when bad things happen? Hi, Rhonda. It's great to see you here. And Carmen as well. So our ability to make sense of the pain and the chaos in our lives is what affects our outcome and how we get through that pain, how we jump the hurdle over the pain, how we face the pain in the first place. So put in the chat box the negative things you've heard others say to their brain that we don't want to be saying to ourselves. We have to name it in order to identify it and then fix it. William's saying, we are the traffic controllers. We are the ones that allow what lands in our mind. Thank you, William. Good on you. So, we need to face how we are hurting ourselves with our negative mind chatter. What could we speak into our brains, our lives, that is so much more constructive? Marie's saying, I've been trying to use this time to help others, although sometimes to the detriment of my own mental health. Wow, Marie. So thank you for your honesty, and I really appreciate that, my friend. You are a wonderful helper to so many, and you have the gift of encouragement. And it's really important also to do that encouragement, give that encouragement to yourself. So whatever is refreshing and replenishing to you, take time out daily to do that. It's crucial. So are we going to play a small game in life and just huddle up, stay in our comfort zone, take no risks? Or are we prepared to expand our horizons like Marie is, trying to use this time to help others, but also being mindful of putting on that oxygen mask yourself? So are you living consciously by making a choice of intentionality of what you put into your brain with your mind chatter? Or are you just letting things happen and feeding yourself with negative thoughts? It's a matter of filtering, being a traffic controller or letting your mind be a filter. We must constantly be at the gateway of our mind and choose what to let in and what to keep out. Choose what you feed your brain with. You cannot plant bitter seeds and expect beautiful fruit to blossom. So plant in deep, good, fertile soil what you want to see in the future. Life isn't fair. It's an important thing to acknowledge, but it still can be good. What meaning can we find through adversity? Life can still be wonderful. When I lost my hair through chemo, I knew it was just a superficial and temporary thing. Nevertheless, John united with me in the battle by shaving his own head also. Not that anyone noticed from his previous hair coverage. If you know John, you'll be laughing. Give a laugh if you can see it now. Put that in the chat box. A really encouraging moment for me one night, though, was when all my hair was falling out over the pillow and John whispered, "You know what, sweetheart? I've kept this a secret for our entire marriage, but I think bald women are really hot." And that was a blessing. Through the grief, I found a blessing. And he gave that beautiful statement of affirmation. Thanks, Marie. Glad you love it. He just delighted in making me laugh. One of my most helpful mantras was to say, I am not my body. If ever there was a time, this was the time to focus on my soul and to be totally separate, to totally separate it from what was happening inside my body. My soul is so different. My soul is my mind and my emotions. My body was totally separate. Strangely enough, it was a gift for me to become acutely aware that I had little control in my life. Prior to cancer, I persisted with things that I know I should have let go of so much earlier. Now, through the cancer treatment journey that I was just finishing around this time 10 years ago, I was learning not to sweat the small stuff. With cancer, everything dwarfed into comparison. And when we're confronted with our own mortality, the everyday stuff we stress about just pales into insignificance. I found it really freeing to gain greater clarity around what is really, really important in life. I'm filled with gratitude in just being alive every single day, feeling the love and support of my family and friends, and being able to give back in a way like this, 10 years down the track, a decade down the track, being able to give back to people. I just love this, and thank you for supporting me in something that I found hard to begin this video series. I just found so hard, but I knew God prompted me with it, and it was an important thing to do. And now He's giving me purpose in what I didn't even know I would have 10 years ago, when I didn't even know I'd be staying alive. You know, I'm often asked, how did I cope with the treatment? Being asked to partake in a Dancing with the Stars, yeah, can you believe it? Me, Dancing with the Stars? I did a couple of years ballet lessons, but that doesn't equip you for Dancing with the Stars. Mind you, it was Kiama version. Before you think, hey, was I on TV? No, it was just Kiama version of Dancing with the Stars, raising money for this African orphanage. But it was such a welcome distraction from the trauma of all my radiation treatment I was up to at that stage when I did this Dancing with the Stars. And it helped me to focus on other people who needed help, like these African orphans that we were raising money for. So just because of my own adversity, it didn't mean I had to be immobilized from reaching out to others. That's why your comment is important, Marie. It's good to have that balance. It's important to see bigger perspective and find something that is bigger than just what we are going through. And to focus on something outside myself was so important. So to learn how to dance with this Latin American guy, my instructor, when my body was going through radiation, to me it was a symbol of celebrating what I could do whilst accepting what I couldn't. So whatever your pain might be, it's so important to face it, yet at the same time to use welcome distractions to focus on a higher purpose than yourself. Doing something just totally different and getting out of your comfort zone, it actually empowered me to fight the cancer and to say, you have no place here. So let's read some of your comments. Gina, welcome, my dear American sister from my exchange days. Thank you. Robin's saying, I hear myself saying, I'm a good person. Why is this happening to me or us? I'm trying to say, wow, how much have I grown and learnt during this time that I would not have learnt otherwise. That's right, it's the growth mindset, Robin. Powerful stuff. What can I grow? How can I develop through this situation? What meaning can I find in this? Kathy's saying, I refuse to be overtaken by another person's poor decision. It might have been pure pride, but I was not going to allow a bitter divorce. I was determined to lean into God to overcome the situation. Good on you, Kathy. Thanks so much for your honesty. Marie's saying, I really like the oxygen mask example. And Rhonda is saying, I long for the blessings on the other side of bitterness. And you will get there when you, Rhonda, just continually feed your brain with good things. If you feed your body with good things, like, I had yogurt and fruit and a bit of muesli for breakfast. But I don't care half as much about my body as I do about my mind, my soul. So feed your mind with good things, and you will get there step by step. Alison's saying, I had a coming out party when my hair came out with chemo. Everyone had to wear a wig or a hat. It was a fun way to process a really difficult time. I love that, Alison. I know, and I'm so sorry I couldn't come across the other side of the world to your coming out party. Marie's saying, I can relate to that feeling of gratitude and how I've understood so much more about myself and grown as a result. So nothing is wasted in this life. Thank you so much for your comments. So indeed, through all your stories and mine, there are many treasures we can find in the darkness. It's interesting how life, when it seems most secure, it can all of a sudden become unspeakably fragile. And when it's most precarious, it can yet be unspeakably good. It's interesting, isn't it? Cancer and other illnesses or other COVID real tragedies at the time can happen for many reasons, and some are known and some are not known. And for others, it can be totally random, terrible things occurring. But what can we grow through these terrible things? Just start one step at a time today if you're in that place. What will you do to take action on today? And if it's as simple as going out and being kind to yourself, putting that oxygen mask on first, and that might be finding fresh air and sunshine and exercise, because all those three things are the most powerful physiological things you can do for your brain. They increase your serotonin, which is the happy chemical in your brain. They increase your endorphins. Exercise is the most wonderful thing. You don't have to be a great exerciser. You know, I love cycling, but you don't have to do any of that stuff. You can just get out there and walk. Movement is the key. Just move your body daily, every hour, if you can. Make sure you are moving. So exercise and fresh air and sunshine. Give yourself a dose of it every day, because that is the best 24/7 pharmacy. You don't have to go out and always get the drugs from the real pharmacy that we think of. You have your own pharmacy inside your body with those three things that you can do daily. Exercise, fresh air and sunshine. Alison's saying learning to live in the moment, for none of us is guaranteed tomorrow. None of us get that guarantee. Marie saying, you are such an encouragement to so many, Heather. Thank you, my dear friend. You know I'm going through tough times at the moment, but my legs, although they're wobbly, with the situations that are occurring in my life at the moment, we can feed our brain with wonderful stuff. And reflecting on this topic, I just want you all to know that given this is where you might be right now, what is your ideal? What are the feelings that you imagine would be attached to that ideal? How do you want to feel? And can I roll that back a bit? What are the thoughts that you need to put into your brain to create that feeling of peace? You see, we can have peace at any time. We may not be able to find joy in every single moment. It's okay. But to find peace, what are you feeding your brain with? It might be, I'm going through a really devastating time right now, and I will survive. I will survive. I will get through this because I got my 2 feet out of bed today and planted them on the carpet. That's the first step, to get outside and get that fresh air and sunshine. So, reflecting on this topic, keeping your mind strong when you're feeling wobbly, I was reminded of 3 mottos that I'm going to finish with. My dad's motto was, put your best foot forward. So I'm going to say to you today, put your best brain forward. Put your best thoughts forward. Because what you think, so you are. And then Winston Churchill's motto, never ever give up. And my motto is, let your light shine. There are always treasures to be found in the darkness. So what are your treasures? Just put in the chat box now one treasure that you have found out of this session. Just pick one treasure that you are going to act on today. You are going to make a decision to take action on that little gleam of hope, that little treasure, that little jewel that you have found in the darkness. And I'm going to give you a little treasure right now. I'm running the Elevate Your Wellbeing workshop. Very limited numbers because of COVID, with all the COVID restrictions. But the Elevate Your Wellbeing workshop and the Freedom to Forgive for Forgiveness workshop that's on in October and then November, you get $50 off. Members of this wonderful group that's now 390 something, you get $50 off each of those programs. And if you happen to register for both, there's a $150 discount for making a decision to take action on feeding your brain with good things, taking care of yourself so you can be contagious care for others. So enjoy the day and let your light shine. Thanks, folks.